Hi everyone. So guess what? I came across another article very similar to the one that I made a video to a few weeks ago about an unconstitutional Ag-Gag law. But this one is for Canada, for the province of Ontario. Now, I'm not Canadian and I do not live in Canada. So if I get this wrong for my Canadian vegan friends, please accept my apology. I'm sorry if I say anything incorrectly. I am not trying to be insensitive, culturally insensitive. Some wordings are very different after I read the article, so I did my best to understand it, and I went back a little bit again so I can understand it, so I can share with you all my interpretation of it. And once again, disclaimer: I'm not a legal expert. I'm not providing legal advice in any capacity, and I'm not representing any organization. So this is just me on how I interpret it. So check this out. This article is titled "Animal Rights Activists Thrilled After Parts of Ontario Agricultural Law Deemed Unconstitutional." That's fantastic, right? That the law is doing its job and it's coming down on these unconstitutional laws that are placed, right? And they're called Ag-Gag laws. So here is a quote from the article right off the bat. Animal advocates are celebrating after parts of a controversial Ontario agriculture law that made it illegal to get a job on a farm under a false pretense to expose conditions inside were deemed unconstitutional. This is so familiar. This is exactly what was happening in Kansas. If we recall, in Kansas, the Animal Legal Defense Fund and the coalition that they assembled filed a lawsuit against the state of Kansas for their Ag-Gag law, violating the Constitution, meaning they were violating the First Amendment of free speech and freedom of press. And this is exactly what is happening on in Ontario. Their Ag-Gag law is also infringing on people's freedom of speech right, and that is why it is deemed unconstitutional. So here in this particular case, Animal Justice is who filed a lawsuit against this bill in Ontario that is infringing on people's freedom of speech. And what is happening is that the Ag-Gag law is trying to take the ability away of people saying false pretenses to get a job on a farm, and then they come across things that they want to take pictures of or footage and then release it to the public, and that is violating free speech. Bill 156, Security from Trespass and Protecting Food Safety Act 2020. You can find this bill in its totality at the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. The bill is intended to protect farm animals, the food supply, farmers, and others from risks that are created when trespassers enter places where farm animals are kept or when persons engage in unauthorized interactions with farm animals. The risks include the risk of exposing farm animals to disease and stress, as well as the risk of introducing contaminants into the food supply. This is a very lengthy bill. Like I said earlier, you can review its totality at ola.org. And parts of this bill has a lot of legal jargon that I cannot understand. Nevertheless, though, this part is very relevant because it also made it illegal for number one, no person shall stop, hinder, obstruct, or otherwise interfere with a motor vehicle transporting farm animals. And number two, no person shall interfere or interact with a farm animal being transported by a motor vehicle without the prior consent of the driver of the motor vehicle. And according to the article, quote, the bill also made it illegal to interact with animals inside transport trucks, a law seemingly designed to target one group in the province, Toronto Pig Save. The group is part of the large SAVE movement, whose members bear witness and hold vigils for animals en route to slaughter. So in 2021, Animal Justice launched a charter challenge. Quote, they argued the new law infringed on their freedom of expression because they could not tell the outside world what was happening inside a farm if they gained access to the property through a false pretense. 3 years later, in 2024, Justice Marcus Conan struck down parts of Bill 156. The judge wrote in his decision, quote, the act limits the mode of expression by preventing undercover exposés or even eyewitness description of the conditions in which animals are raised or slaughtered if the person providing the description gained access to premises using false pretenses. The decision said the province enacted the legislation in response to demands from the agricultural industry and about 120 municipal resolutions calling on the government to do more to control trespassing. Ontario argued the legislation was aimed at, quote, protecting animal safety, biosecurity, and the safety of farmers, as well as preventing economic harm that can arise from threats to animal safety and biosecurity, end quote. That sounds very familiar to the state of Kansas when they opposed and appealed the lawsuit. Very interesting. Justice Marcus Conan wrote, the expression is of public interest. For a potential employee to deny any association with animal rights groups in a job interview does not threaten biosecurity, the food supply chain, or animal safety. According to the Animal Justice blog, initially, the ruling concluded that there would be a further hearing for animal justice and the government to make arguments about when the striking down of the law should come into effect. But the government has agreed that the law should be struck down immediately. Late on Thursday, May 2nd, the court signed an order to that effect. Now, animal justice and other organizations and journalists are free to resume their important work exposing and reporting on hidden cruelty in the animal agricultural industry. Also, on Thursday, the government served notice that it plans to appeal the part of the court decision that overturned Ontario's Ag-Gag law. According to the article from CBC and the article in the Animal Justice website, the part that the judge upheld was the restrictions on interacting with animals inside trucks bound for slaughter. According to the blog on the Animal Justice website, this is the first time in Canadian history that an Ag-Gag law has been challenged in court. And this victory bodes well for the continued fight against these dangerous laws across the country. A win for animals and free expression.